Everyone, today I wanted to share with you something that we've been doing in our homeschool recently for my 9-year-old who's in 4th grade. And something that we've been doing that has been going really well. And I want to share this because it is related to ADHD. He does have ADHD, and he is my kid who is constantly talking and he loves to share what he knows and what his thoughts are, and he remembers so much of like what he reads and all of that, but he is constantly talking. And in our homeschool, that can be sometimes very distracting to others or me, and so I feel like I have spent a lot of time trying to refocus him. Okay, great, share that with me later. Let's get back to what we're doing. Let's finish, your work, focus on what you need to get done. I feel like I've finally found a way to kind of to recognize that as a strength of his and really make it work for him to help him excel. I've read a lot recently in different homeschooling books about how, especially when you're talking about maybe a child with ADHD, is to really focus on their strengths and their interests and, teach to their strengths. And I've really kind of struggled to figure out what that looks like, what that means outside of just, making Minecraft school, which, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of educational things that can be done with Minecraft, but that's not really the kind of application that I was hoping to find for that advice. So I'm going to share with you how we got to what I'm going to talk more about here in a minute. So let me start with this. So my son does Science Mom chemistry for his science this year. And if you're not familiar with Science Mom, it is a video-led program. And then there's a little, there's like note pages and things that you can do along with it. Now, I like this because I don't have to teach it, and the lessons are really well done. They're getting really good information, and I just think they're done really well. So, and I also like that because I don't have to teach this is typically about 45 minutes that I can focus on something else. So typically I'm doing math with my 7th grader when my son is doing his chemistry, because he's at the other end of the room, he has headphones on, he's listening to the lesson and all of that. But what was happening both with chemistry and in history, which are two things that he's doing more independently, is that he would want to pause every couple of minutes to tell me something that he learned that he thought was cool, or something funny that happened in the video, or a connection that he had made to what he learned to something he already knows, which is, again, one of his strengths, is his ability to make connections is just amazing. And when that was happening, I was not very open to hearing about it right then, because I was trying to do math with my daughter, which can be a stressful subject, and the constant interruptions were interruptions. They were interrupting that math time. And so I said to him, buddy, I need you to just tell me about it at the end, okay? And he was, kind of disappointed, but he said, okay. And then he said, well, I'm going to write this down. I'm going to write everything down so I can remember to tell you all of the stuff. And I was like, okay, whatever. So he started taking notes. Every day that he had, both in science and in history, he would take notes of the interesting things he learned, or something that, a connection he made to something else. And then when the lesson was done, or when we had time, he would then come and tell me all about it. So I have moved most of his notes to a notebook, and these are just however he wants to take his notes. I'm not doing formal note-taking lessons or anything with him right now, but this is him writing down the things that he found interesting from the lesson. He is very into chemistry, by the way. So I don't like go through his notes and, check for accuracy or anything like that. But he takes all these notes, and then when he's done, then he wants to talk to someone about it, like right away. And I'll be honest, I'm not a science person, and so I kind of glaze over a little bit. But he's very excited about it, and if my husband's home, he'll usually go tell my husband all about it. But I thought, this is like amazing. I don't have to push him to take notes. He's already doing this on his own because he's that interested in it and because he wants to share it. And so I thought, well, that's a great thing. Let's just continue that. And I thought, well, maybe I can tie some writing into his note-taking. Like maybe we can do something, from those notes. So I kind of had that on my mind. And then I found this book at the library, and it's called The Adventures of Everyday Geniuses, Free Association, Where My Mind Goes During Science Class. And I really like this book. Now, if you read the reviews on Amazon, there's a lot of kind of, well, not a lot, but there were several like negative reviews that I read, basically saying, man, if I let all my kids do this, we would never get anything done, and yada, yada, yada. But I think this is one of those, I'll tell you about this here in just a second, but this is one of those, that's the beauty of homeschooling. I actually despise that phrase because I feel like every time I hear the phrase, that's the beauty of homeschooling, I feel like a lot of times it's overused, and it's used in a way that makes you feel better about not doing something that you probably should have done. But I feel like what this book talks about is one of the beauties of homeschooling, and is a way that you can use your child's strengths and teach to your child's strengths, and really let those strengths help them, kind of guide you to help them excel. So anyway, this story is about this little girl. I think she's actually in 4th grade, if I remember correctly, who in science class is often daydreaming, right? And her teacher's constantly trying to get her to pay attention, and all of that. And this little girl really loves science, even though she doesn't think her teacher thinks so, but she just can't help that she's constantly thinking about things she's not supposed to be thinking about. And so her teacher one day gives her a notebook and says, every time during class that you find yourself starting to daydream, I want you to write it down in this notebook. And I think her teacher wanted to kind of get a better idea of what was going on, and maybe also to have the child start to recognize when she was getting off track, I think was the point of it. And so she did it, and then she found herself daydreaming and then writing about her daydreams. And so, I think her teacher kind of thought maybe this isn't working. You spent half the class writing in this book. And so her teacher's like, well, let me take a look at it and see if I can get a better understanding of what's distracting you during class. And so she reads through her notebook, and she, realizes that by allowing her to kind of follow her thoughts and take some notes on it, that she was actually making, not all of it, but some of what she was writing, she was making some connections, and she was having these kind of brainstorm ideas that stemmed from the lesson. And so she eventually then gives all of the students a science journal to kind of, as she says, let your inventive imagination soar. This is what science is all about, creating new ideas and using your imaginations, and et cetera, et cetera. So I was really happy to kind of find this book, and it made me see that by letting my son have a little bit of that freedom to get off track, get off focus a little bit, that is actually a strength for him, because the connections that he's making and the ideas that can stem from that, I think are what is going to help him excel as he continues on in his school career. And so by doing this, that's kind of giving him it's guiding it a little bit, right? So it's not 100% interrupting our school day every time he does it, but it's still allowing his brain to work in the way that his brain works. And I think that that's really important because ADHD is not a one-size-fits-all diagnosis. And I think so much of what we see talks about ADHD as if it's a very specific, these are the symptoms, this is how an ADHD brain works, and this is how you need to educate with an ADHD brain. And I think while there are a lot of commonalities, it's not so black and white. It's not a cookie cutter kind of thing. And so this was just this thing that kind of naturally happened. And then finding this book, the two ideas just kind of went together and helped my brain understand that allowing him to have this free association, if you will, during science class or during history, giving him some tools to kind of guide it a little bit, but giving his brain the opportunity to do that, I think is going to help him so much in the long run. And so then what we've done from there is I've added in more recently to our schedule 1 day a week, a one-on-one time with him. And during that one-on-one time, we do various things. Most recently, we have been working through this gifted and talented different like puzzles because these are really, just for his particular brain and the way it works, these are very good for him. So sometimes we do something like that. Sometimes we work through his ADHD workbook. And then what I have also added in more recently is some writing based on what he's doing in here and bringing in our writing revolution. And so one of the days for his notes, I gave him this little mind map, and he kind of filled that in during his note-taking time. And this was just a free printable, I think, that I found online. And then from there, we went through, we picked 1 day's worth of notes, and we went through and used this little brainstorming page, and he wrote kind of what the topic was. And then in the green were details from his notes that he took on that topic. And then the yellow were things like other connections that he made or thoughts that he had related to the lesson, but not specifically part of the lesson. And then down here in the orange, he kind of took all that and wrote, I wonder what question was he asking himself based on this? So this brainstorming was also really good for him. And then from this, we went into doing some, he made an outline. Let me find just a blank one here. He made an outline here, topic sentence and some details and a concluding sentence. And then we were able to really kind of bring in our writing revolution and using a topic that he was very interested in, work on our writing skills at the sentence level. I mean, we wrote a paragraph, but we were really focused in on coming up with some strong sentences and what strategies he could use for those sentences. And then at the very end, he, had a paragraph. And this is something we can build on because can this get better? Can his sentences get stronger? Yes. And this was just a really good way to use his strengths and then have it help us do something else we needed to do. So anyway, this has been working really well for us. And it was, I guess for me, this aha moment of like, oh, now I understand. Like now I understand how I can use what his strengths are and maybe look at things that you might not have seen as a strength before, recognize it as a strength, and then find a way to use it to help your kids excel. And so anyway, this was just something that just all kind of came together really nicely, and it's something that I want to build on. And I thought that it might be helpful, so I wanted to share it in a video. So hopefully that is helpful to you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below.